All right, guys, let's do another Green Bay Packers 7-round mock draft. It's crazy. We are now in the month of April. We are just over 3 weeks away from the NFL draft. We're getting closer and closer. And after this mock draft today, I only have 3 more weeks, 3 more mock drafts to do before draft night on April 24th. Of course, also do my Brian Gutekunst mock the day before the draft. But man, I'm so excited. We are so close. So just like usual, we're going to be doing a 7-round mock draft for the Green Bay Packers. This will be version 7.0. And of course, yes, they do include trades. If this sort of thing does interest you, along with everything else Green Bay Packers this offseason, I'd highly suggest going down and clicking the subscribe button to stay in the loop with everything Packers. Also turn on post notifications so you don't miss any of the videos as well. Also, over the past couple of weeks, we've went over Packers threshold fits at certain positions of need in the upcoming draft, such as edge and wide receiver. I'm going to be releasing the cornerback threshold fit this week, so be on the lookout for that. And also a big shout out to today's video sponsor, BetUsTV. Go over to BetUsTV. I linked their YouTube channel down in the description below. Go click subscribe for more sports content. Over on BetUsTV, you'll find tons of sports videos, content, and also odds. And on top of that, they also have an X account, so go check that out as well. Again, big shout out to BetUsTV for sponsoring this video. All right, so without further ado, let's dive down into this mock draft. The only thing that has changed for the Green Bay Packers from last week's mock draft to this week's mock draft is the signing of Christian Welch. Might not be a huge signing by any means, but it does tell you one thing. Seems like they found their guy to replace Eric Wilson in terms of special team snaps, right? A couple mock drafts, I've added linebackers in the 6th or 7th round, which definitely still could happen. The Packers could still add a linebacker in this draft for sure. Will they have a massive need for it? No. Eric Wilson did play around 550 snaps, I think just over that, on defense last season, but I think they're going to have Tyron Hopper take those defensive snaps. Not only that, Edgerrin Cooper's just going to play more snaps, a lot more than he did last year, so that's going to kind of remove a lot of those snaps as well. But if they need a depth linebacker to step in due to injury or whatever else reason, it's probably going to be Tyron Hopper, but they're going to have Christian Welch in the building, if he makes the 53, that is, to basically be a special teamer. All right, so let's bring up the screen. Of course, we're on the PFF mock draft simulator. The Packers pick at 23. I'm doing a 7-round, of course, so let's get into it. So again, we are doing trades in this mock draft, so I have a couple players that are kind of like, if they fall to a certain point, then I'm going to trade up. And the 2 players I have is both Ted McMillan and Will Johnson, right at around pick 18 or 19. I've also been working on a chart showcasing the value of trading up, trading down, what you would have to give, what you'd have to give up for the Green Bay Packers, the position that they're in. And 18-19 isn't that expensive. So if someone like Ted McMillan or Will Johnson were to fall to 18 or 19, maybe the Packers end up trading up. But at the same time, I feel like a trade down is probably more likely in this draft. Right around, to the mid-teens is where players start to kind of fall off of that true first-round talent value. So if the board falls a certain way to 23, could definitely see the Packers trading down. So let's get right into it. Let's get to either a trade-up situation or our pick. All right, so we're on the clock at 23. I didn't end up trading up. We had Ted McMillan go to 13. I think that's pretty realistic. I think he could fall a little bit more than that. Shamar Stewart all the way up at 11. Now, Will Johnson did fall to 18. If he fell to 19, I was going to do a trade-up. Let me know what you think in the comments. If Will Johnson falls around 19 or 20, do you want the Packers to trade up for Will Johnson? I think he's definitely the best cornerback in this class. Obviously, the injury concerns, but I think he really is, and if the Packers could somehow snag him at around 20, that would be crazy. But, Michael Williams at 19, Walter Nolan, Donovan Ezeraku at 21. He's someone that I know a lot of Packers fans want due to the ties to Jeff Hafley, due to the production the last season, a little bit on the shorter side at 6'2", but does have 34-inch arms, which the Packers like. So we're on the clock here at 23. Some players available. Malachi Stark's not really a need there at safety, although he's a phenomenal player. Luther Burden is someone that's probably going to fall out of the first round, but probably shouldn't. A lot of people see him as just a pure slot guy, or someone, I heard reports coming out that he doesn't give great effort in practice. He'll probably fall out of the first round and then become a very good pickup for whatever team gets him in the second. James Pierce Jr., Kenneth Grant, Egbuka's available, Derek Harmon. There's a lot of talent available. And honestly, I don't really know if I've done a significant trade down in a mock draft yet. I think I've done some trades, but nothing too crazy. So I'm going to look into doing a trade here. And like I said, I was doing a chart to kind of go over some of the values you can get back. And this is using the Rich Hill value or trade value chart for the NFL draft, which is pretty realistic compared to, say, the PFF simulator here. So I listed a bunch of options, right? You could trade down one pick at 2025 or all the way to 36 with Jacksonville, which, I don't really see happening, but you could see what you'd have to send if you're the Green Bay Packers and what you'd get back from other teams, such as getting down to Cleveland. You'd send 23, 159, 250, but you'd get back 33, 67, and 216. So you'd really be upgrading some picks there. There's definitely some great options here. So I'm going to look into a lot of these. This is also pretty crazy with Tennessee. They don't have many picks available, so this is one a little bit unrealistic. But there are some options here, and I'm thinking about a trade down. Maybe we get right around Kansas City, Philadelphia. And pick up some picks there. We'll see, though. So in terms of value, I think the best value is dropping 7 picks and trading with the Buffalo Bills and netting 2 extra picks, but also upgrading a couple here. So we're swapping 23 and 30, so we're dropping 7 picks there, but we're also swapping 87 and 62. And then we're also picking up 169, a compensatory pick they have there, and then also 206, giving us more ammunition to maybe trade up in the second round. So get someone at pick 30, but then maybe trade up into the second round and get another player, but also end up with more picks than what we started with. So I'm going to go ahead and offer that trade with the Buffalo Bills. It's going to be accepted. And again, I'm using the Rich Hill trade value chart. So this is a pretty equal value. Would the Buffalo Bills send this? Who knows? But it is an equal value, and we're doing a mock draft here. So we're trying to, replicate realistic style type of trades, and the Buffalo Bills trade up and get Kelvin Banks Jr., tackle out of Texas. So let's get to our pick at 30. So we're back on the clock at pick 30, and some of the players that went in between, like I said, Kelvin Banks to the Bills, Derek Harmon to the Vikings, Gray Zabel, Malachi Starks, Marion Hampton, Tyler Booker, James Pierce Jr. to the Commanders. So we're back on the clock at 30, and some of the players we mentioned are still available at 30. We have Luther Bird in the third, we have Kenneth Grant, we have Egbuka, Nick Scorton, Darius Alexander, Jack Betch, Trey Amos, Maxwell Harrison, Princely Human Mielen. So there's a lot of availability here, but I think the player that stands out at 30 is definitely Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. And I know I've mocked him to the Packers probably 2 or 3 times now, but it seems likely that the Packers would go defensive line first in this draft over edge. After the comments we got from Brian Gutekunst yesterday, and him again showing resounding confidence in his current edge group. I mean, yeah, they're going to go add talent to it. But one thing is clear this offseason, they lost TJ Slayton, and he was a starter for this defense in terms of, a guy that plays in the middle of that defensive line to help stop the run. And Kenneth Grant can be a plug-and-play defensive lineman for what the Packers are missing now with the absence of TJ Slayton. And Kenneth Grant, 6'3", 339, 21 years old. The Packers love very young defensive talent in the first round. Coming out of Michigan off a 3-sack season, really, really good against the run. 87.5 run defense grade, 7.9 run stop rate, pass rush win rate at 9.4. You can move him around the defensive line, but you more importantly can put him right in the middle there. Kind of where, like I said, TJ Slayton was, and help against the run. This is a crazy good defensive line class, as we said so many times for this draft. And I think getting one in the first round, then maybe getting another one, maybe more of like a 3-tech guy later in the draft, is a great option. And loading up the trenches is also a great option, right? The Packers want to be able to send 4 and get home, just like every other team in the NFL at this rate, right? The Philadelphia Eagles, that's how they won the Super Bowl and beat the Kansas City Chiefs so easily, right? They sent 4 and they got home with those 4. So adding talent to that front 4 of Kenneth Grant, adding another Michigan talent, right, with Rashawn Gary there. You can have Kenny Clark, Carl Brooks. Hopefully Lucas Van Ness takes a step up in year 3. Brenton Cox Jr. took a step up last year. Hopefully he can continue that upwards trend. And we picked up extra picks doing so. And Kenneth Grant, I'd be fine with that pick at 23. So dropping down to 30, picking up extra picks, and still getting Kenneth Grant, I think I would be very, very happy at the end of night 1 if Brian Gutekunst was able to pull this off. So pick 30, we are going Kenneth Grant, defensive lineman out of Michigan. All right, so I'm actually going to trade up to pick 47 here, and it wasn't actually going to be for Jaden Higgins, though he did go the pick right before this at 46 to the Atlanta Falcons. Love that pick for them. But it's going to be for a cornerback, and it's not going to be Azariah Thomas or Maxwell Harrison, guys that I've talked about a lot. I'm going to trade with the Arizona Cardinals here, up from 54. They're short on draft picks, We're only going to be losing one net draft pick. We're going to be swapping 54 and 47, but giving up 124, but picking up 152. But sending 237. So that trade was made, and we're going to be going for a cornerback, like I said, and there are a ton of options here at 47. Maybe I could have waited until 54 and then just got my pick of one of these four, but I wanted to go up and get our guy, and that's going to be Tre Harris. He's not someone I've talked about a lot, and he's been kind of flying under the radar in terms of this cornerback class. A lot of people are talking about Siobhan Ravel, ton of potential, but played at lesser talent, played against lesser talent, should I say, coming off an injured season. So you kind of worry with that, right? Darian Porter, a ton of athleticism, not much play time. Benjamin Morrison, great player, injured hip, right? So there's a lot of cornerback prospects that you go, oh, they're great in this regard, but whereas Tre Harris, 3 straight seasons of very, very solid cornerback play for Ole Miss. This past season being his best one with 3 interceptions, allowed 32 receptions. Good in zone coverage, good in man coverage, low completion percentage allowed, 13 forced incompletions, which is tied for 13th best in the nation, all at outside cornerback, which is where the Packers need to add depth. And you see here, he does some of his best work from cover 3 and quarter schemes. That's something the Packers run a ton. At least they did last year under Jeff Hafley. And he definitely fits the mold for the Green Bay Packers in terms of cornerbacks. I can actually search him up here on RIS to show you that. Tre Harris, near a 9.0 RIS. Again, I'll release the cornerback video here later this week, but right at that Packers threshold, right? 6 foot, 195, good speed, pretty solid explosion, not great vertical, but good broad jump. I really like Tre Harris. He's someone that's kind of flown under the radar for me as well, and I'm starting to really look into him more now. I think this would be awesome value at 47. We go and get Kenneth Grant. We're going to load up more on this defense here in the first and second round, and we're going to get Tre Harris, cornerback from Ole Miss, here at pick 47 after a little bit of a trade up. So remember, we're on the clock yet again here in the second round due to that first round trade down. I'm going to trade down again. I'm going to get more draft picks. Gutekunst kept saying, hey, we're going to end up with more draft picks. That's pretty much what he said. So I'm going to trade down yet again, and we'll probably end up trading up in a couple rounds, but now we have a ton of ammunition to do so because we're going to pick up yet another pick here, moving down 5 spots and picking up 179 from the Cleveland Browns, moving from 62 to 67, and probably still getting the player that I want. So we're going to go ahead and offer that trade to the Cleveland Browns and get to our pick. And we are still going to get the player that we wanted because it's going to be for Tre Harris, back-to-back Ole Miss players. You guys know he's probably one of my favorite wide receivers in this entire draft class, and I really, really do think he is a perfect fit for the Green Bay Packers. Great versus man coverage, although it's a smaller sample size. When he did play against man coverage, he was an absolute menace. Above average drop rate at 7.7%. Great contested catch rate at 61.5%. Receiving grade was off the charts. 925 plus yards the past 3 seasons, right? And this is in a boring Ole Miss RPO offense. He had 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns at 17.2 yards per reception. And I'm telling you, watching the tape, a lot of those receptions were RPO screenplays. So the fact that he still averaged 17.2 yards per reception tells you what you need to know about this guy being a downfield threat. Not a burner by any means, ran a 4.5, 4.40, but you can line him up as the X. You can do a bunch of things with him. He's a physical wide receiver. He can run block. He's physical with the ball in his hands. He'll throw out stiff arms, yard after the catch, right? And I really, really like him adding him into this offense. He's one of my favorite receivers. I think he's going to be very good at the NFL level. So we're going to go Tre Harris, wide receiver out of Ole Miss here at pick 67 after a trade down 5 spots. All right, so we're back on the board at 152. It was a while to wait. I think it was around 60, 70 picks. And there were some options that I was sitting there going, hey, we could trade up, but it would have taken a lot. Now we have a ton of picks left. I mean, we have a ton of picks from now till 200. We have, what is that, 5 picks? So we can really start to load up on talent here in the 5th to 6th round. A lot of them being in the 5th round. I think 3 of them being in the 5th, and 2 of them being in the 6th. And the Packers tend to do really, really well in the 5th round, 4th to 5th round. It was a shame we didn't have a 4th rounder. That's what the Packers do really well. I could have traded maybe 2 or 3 of these picks and moved up and got a 4th round pick here. But, we're going to load up in the 5th round. And this is definitely an interesting mock draft. And again, I want to change things up from time to time. So this is a mock I wanted to really kind of load up on the middle rounds or day 3 picks and really get some talent and some depth on this roster because As we sit, the Packers have a very, very thin roster for next offseason. We have a lot of impending free agents after this season, and we know the Packers aren't going to pay every single player top tier money, so we're going to have to load up on some talent in this draft for sure. And we're at 152 here. We could go offensive line. We could go another corner. I really like Logan Brown, and I'm hoping I can get him in my next pick at 159. Former Badger offensive lineman there, but I think we need to get an edge player and someone that I like, and I would have really liked to get Tyler Barron, edge. I think he went a bit higher at 134 to the Eagles. He's someone that I just really feel fits the Green Bay Packers. But another edge that really fits the Green Bay Packers is Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins. And if you watch my edge video going over their thresholds, you'll see why. Not a crazy amount of production this past season, 3 sacks, and this is kind of also why it just fits the Green Bay Packers. A guy that's a great athlete, but maybe not a ton of production, has a very, very high ceiling, and played some of his best football this past season, but is only getting better, and that is Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins. He's one of the best athletes in terms of size to speed and explosion in this entire draft class. 6'5", 276, 36-inch vertical, 10'4" broad jump, and nearly 34-inch arms, and 9.09 RS, which we know the Packers really, really like. He just feels like a Green Bay Packer edge that they're going to end up drafting. So here at pick 152, we're going edge. We're going Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins out of Georgia. So unfortunately, Logan Brown went at 154. Now, there are some other options in terms of offensive linemen. Seth McLaughlin. We could add a true center into the building, let him, sit under Elgton Jenkins, who is officially playing center for the Green Bay Packers, but potentially, down the line, someone like Seth McLaughlin could take over at starting center a couple of years down the line. You also have Jonah Monheim at that same center position, but you could get Jake Majors later in this draft. At guard, you have, Connor Colby, Tyler Cooper, and at tackle, you have Jack Nelson, John Williams, Emory Jones. But remember, we still have more picks here, and I think I'm going to double dip at wide receiver, and I'm going to go Kyle Williams, a huge sleeper in this draft class. And I don't know why. A lot of people, he has a vast differentiation in terms of draft value. Some people have him as like day 1, day 2 talent, and other people have him later in the 5th, 6th round, which, I'm kind of in between. I think Kyle Williams could definitely be, a 3rd round wide receiver, but I think wherever you get him, he's going to give you more value than where you get him at. Coming off a nearly 1,200 yard season, he played out wide, but can play in the slot. He's a versatile guy, 70 receptions, 14 touchdowns for the Washington State offense. Grade versus man coverage off the charts, 89.8. About average drop rate, 6.7%. Contested catch rate, 62.5%. Now, one thing that is a little bit concerning in terms of if the Packers would have him on their board is his size. He's 5'10", almost 5'11", 190 pounds. But considering you can put him in slot, you can put him out wide as a versatile piece. The Packers have drafted smaller receivers in terms of ones that can do that, such as Jaden Reed, Samori Toure. There's a couple more that had similar size profiles. He has good speed, 4.4 40, decent explosion, vertical and broad jump. So I really like Kyle Williams, and I think the value here in the 5th round is very nice. And getting Tre Harris and Kyle Williams, I think those are 2 receivers that have a ton of potential at the next level. So here at 159, we are going Kyle Williams, wide receiver out of Washington State. Here at 169, we're going to get an offensive lineman. I was in between Connor Colby and Jonah Monheim, and I think I'm going to go Jonah Monheim out of USC just due to the versatility. You can see all the positions he's played over the last 3 years: left tackle, center, right guard, and right tackle. Has a ton of versatility, great football IQ, 6'5", 310, 22 years old. And like I said, Elgton Jenkins is moving over to center. Do they really have a true center on the roster? Not necessarily. They have Jacob Monk, who can definitely play center. Maybe that's their future projection at center, but Jonah Monheim could be. But if not, he can play guard. I don't think he's going to be a tackle at the NFL level. I don't think he has the size nor the arm length to do so. But any one of the 3 interior positions, I think Jonah Monheim could play and could be their future starting center, a couple years down the line, as I mentioned. So pick 169, we're going Jonah Monheim, center/guard out of USC. Now we're in the 6th round. We're at pick 179. Again, we have a ton of picks in this 5th to 6th round. We're going to go Denzel Burke, corner out of Ohio State. So we got Trey Amos a little bit earlier. Denzel Burke's one of my, middle to late round guys that I really like, that I think you're going to get good value. A guy that day 1 could be a solid rotational cornerback in the right scheme. And I think the right scheme is the Green Bay Packers. His best film is playing cover 3 cornerback, outside read and react. And That's what Jeff Hafley wants in his cornerbacks. Does he want to transition more into maybe a more aggressive style man-to-man? Maybe he does. But I do like Denzel Burke in this defense being a depth cornerback. We need more outside guys. We need more depth on the outside, especially if the Packers move on from Jair Alexander, which I still feel like they will do. We'll see what happens, but I feel like they will. And Denzel Burke, maybe not coming off the best season in 2024, but had a really, really good season in 2023 where he only allowed a quarterback rating of 67.8. And the Packers love their draft picks that, 2 seasons ago had their best season. They draft guys a lot that had that situation. So we're going to go Denzel Burke at 179, corner out of Ohio State. Here in the 6th round at 198, we're going to go Ty Robinson out of Nebraska. Now, he's someone that PFF is just criminally underrating. Ty Robinson could go day 2. He might go day 3, but he could go day 2. If for some reason he falls to the 6th round, go up and make that selection right away. We added Kenneth Grant, now adding more of a 3-tech lineman in Ty Robinson, more of an athletic guy that can get after the quarterback, coming off a 6-sack season, but still pretty solid against the run, 8.1% run stop rate, 10.4% pass rush win rate. I think bringing in Ty Robinson, then you pretty much can cut Colby Wooden. I think he's pretty expendable in my opinion, and adding Kenneth Grant to replace TJ Slayton, and then adding Ty Robinson to get more athletic and better on that defensive line compared to someone like Colby Wooden. To me is the right move, or move in the right direction. So we're going to go Ty Robinson, defensive lineman out of Nebraska, here at pick 198. At 206, I'm going to go Holland Pierce, tackle out of Rutgers. This guy is a unit. He's 6'8", 344. Actually looking at his RAS, he is 6'8", 341, 36-inch arms. The Packers love their tackles with just freak size. We saw it with Caleb Williams back in the day, and there's some others I can't get off the top of my head, but Holland Pierce is a guy they bring in, and if they can coach him up, could be a very, very solid swing tackle guy that when you bring on an extra lineman that the Packers like to do in short yardage situations. I mean, Holland Pierce, absolute unit out there for the Rutgers offense. Played left tackle the past 2 seasons, played right tackle in 2022, and graded out very, very well this past season, 85.1, only allowing 1 sack, 5 hits, and 15 quarterback hurries. I like taking flyer linemen that just have freak size in the 6th to 7th round. I feel like the Packers like that as well. So we are going Holland Pierce, tackle out of Rutgers, here at pick 206. Here in the final pick in the 7th round, we're going to go someone I think I've drafted a couple times in the 7th round in previous draft classes, and that is Johnny Walker Jr. from Missouri. Coming off a 10-sack season for the Tigers defense. We see his height and weight profile, 6'3", 255. And again, it's just the 7th round, so you're adding a potential special teams player, or in the future, a guy that can, rotate into your defensive end, your edge room. We already got Ingram Dawkins. You have Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness, Brenton Cox Jr., Kingsley Enagbare, now Ingram Dawkins, and then adding Johnny Walker, a guy in the 7th round that, maybe doesn't make the roster. Sometimes, 7th rounders don't, but becomes a practice squad guy that can, grow and build and maybe become, a solid depth player in the future. Again, you're taking a lot of flyers here in the 6th to 7th round. That's what the Packers like to do. So I'm going to finish this draft by going Johnny Walker Jr., edge out of Missouri, for the final pick. All right, so let's go over this mock draft version 7.0. And the goal of this one was to trade down a couple times, maybe trade up once or twice, and get more draft picks. Brian Gutekunst has said he's pretty much going to end up with more draft picks. You know how the Packers love to have a ton of draft picks in each draft class. The past 2 seasons they have, I believe, had like around 10 picks in the last 2 seasons as well. And in this one, we end up with 10 picks. And I really like how the first 3 rounds went. Now, obviously, there's a big gap from round 3 to round 5, but look at how many picks we had from 5 to 6. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 picks in the 5th and 6th rounds combined. But back to our first 3 picks. Kenneth Grant, after a trade down with the Buffalo Bills, netting 2 extra draft picks, I think is a home run night 1. If Gutekunst can move back 7 spots and still get Kenneth Grant at pick 30, I mean, I'm so happy that first night. Then early in the second night, they trade up and go get their cornerback in Tre Amos, someone I've been kind of underrating or under the radar. I haven't really been looking at too much, but I know a lot of people in my comments mention Tre Amos a lot, and I think he's going to be a good corner at the NFL level, and a guy that doesn't have, too many negatives in terms of, comparing him to other cornerbacks where there's a lot of, there's a ton of potential, but we haven't really seen it a ton, or this cornerback has injury concerns, where Trey Amos is kind of like, okay, I'm ready right now. And that's probably what the Packers need at cornerback, at least at a depth guy that can compete against Nixon, against Carrington, Valentine, right? Hobbs, all those guys. Adding more talent into that room is going to be a must after potentially losing Jair, Corey Ballantyne, Robert Rochelle. Those are going to be three corners that are not on the roster that were this past season. So you're going to have to add talent into that room. Then we trade down from 62 to 67 and still get Tre Harris. So 2 trade downs where you still get the players you really, really want. I think that's a phenomenal way to draft. And I really like Tre Harris. I've talked about him a ton. Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, at 152 in the 5th round. Some people might not like him, but I think he fits the Packers bill like exactly for what they like at their edge position. He's an edge defender coming out of Georgia with not a ton of production and has a tremendous athletic profile. Whether you like it or not, these are the guys Brian Gutekunst drafts, right? So I go Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins here at 152. Then we go Kyle Williams at 159. Very, very underrated wide receiver in this draft class. Adding him and Tre Harris, I would be very, very happy with. Jonah Monheim at 169. Potential future starter at either guard or center position. We see that the Packers are going to give Jordan Morgan the chance to win a starting spot at left tackle, so then you'll need more interior guys in that room for depth. Then we go Denzel Burke at 179, another guy that I like in this draft that I think is underrated. I think he's a more pro-ready guy, and if you could get a pro-ready style corner in a cover 3 scheme in the 6th round, I think that's a very good pick. Ty Robinson, criminally underrated on PFF, probably goes a lot sooner than this, but if you can somehow snag him in the 6th round, that's going to be a phenomenal pick. Holland Pierce, athletic freak, just extreme size at that tackle position with like 36-inch arms. He's 6'8", 342, insane, right? Take a flyer in the 6th round and a tackle like that, a swing guy that you can bring on as an extra lineman in goal line situations and watch him just murder linebackers. Then we have Johnny Walker Jr. at 250, taking another edge, getting a guy that, could potentially grow into like a pure 3rd down pass rusher, right? With this draft, we're adding multiple edges. The Packers, like I said, I think they expect a lot out of their current edge group. And it seems like they weren't happy at all with Jason Rebrovich and how he coached up those edges. And they really feel the new addition of Covington is really going to help their current guys. But that doesn't mean they're still not going to add a couple edges in this draft, especially if they end up with 10 picks. That's how I went with another one in Johnny Walker to wrap this thing up. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I know this is definitely an interesting and different mock draft, but that's the point of doing these every week. We're not going to come out here and do the same picks every single week. That wouldn't be fun. That wouldn't be interesting. We got to do different scenarios, multiple trade downs. Brian Gutekunst picking up an additional 2 or 3 draft picks, but also, trading up a couple times in a draft, right? All those things can definitely happen. So I want to go over different scenarios, but, I think this draft definitely adds a lot of talent at different positions of need for the Green Bay Packers. Again, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, but I really appreciate you guys coming by. If you could leave a like down below, it supports the channel a ton. Also a reminder to go check out BetUsTV, linked down in the description below. But I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching, and as always, go Pack Go.